I'm Alex. I'm 14 years old and I have ADHD. Here's what having ADHD is like for me. When I'm in school, I have a hard time paying attention for a long time. So if my teacher is giving a long lecture, I often can't stay tuned in. My mind tends to wander. I have trouble staying quiet in class, so I fidget and squirm a lot. And I get distracted easily. When I have a thought or an idea, I feel the need to share it immediately. Oftentimes, without thinking, I'll cut people off or blurt things out. This annoys my teachers and my friends. And when I'm at home, and my mom or dad asks me to help out with something, I often get started, but I forget to finish. Or I get sidelined and I'm off doing something else. It's frustrating for everyone. I know it's not my fault. They know it's not my fault. It's my ADHD's fault.
We got an opportunity, a responsibility, not just to ourselves. We got a legacy to uphold, people to make proud. So we got to take advantage of the moment, of the momentum. We got to protect our power, be the vanguards of our own voices. We got to keep doing the work, because our right to be heard won't be taken away on our watch. We got this. We got next.
Why do we think that locks and braids or bantu knots are inherently unkempt? What makes them inherently unprofessional? Historically speaking, these particular hairstyles or the particular hair texture that African descendants largely possess has been racialized. It has been a basis of racial exclusion, a basis of racial stigmatization, and a basis of racial segregation, not only in the United States, but around the world. Work is really trying to convey and to communicate that straight hair, locked hair, braided hair, twisted hair, all hair is good hair. There is so much about hair or not having hair that are so foundational to so many people's identity. And if hair is such an important part of you, just like your skin, your voice, why would we not think of that as being part of somebody's identity or their lived experience? For us to say that hair is not a part of that, I think just defies what has been human existence. I definitely think it's a human right, and it is certainly an expression of of many people's cultural and racial identities. Are just unequivocally saying something that has existed, in my mind, for as long as we've had an anti-discrimination provision covering race, which is that this is race discrimination. Discrimination against black hair or black hairstyles is race discrimination. And that is something that I'm really hoping other jurisdictions will follow with.
Unfortunately, this kind of pejorative stigma associated with, say, natural hairstyles or natural hair texture that has been affixed to, say, African descendants has been described as something that is bad, that's something that should be policed, that is something that should be punished, and actually tried to be eliminated in many ways, and that therefore we should cover or alter our hair in order to achieve a straight hairstyle, because that straight hairstyle is being considered to be good or positive in nature. For me, like for many African descendant women and girls, to wear our hair naturally or how it naturally grows, or to wear protective hairstyles like braids or twists or locks, really is not very much of a choice. Otherwise, I'm going to suffer either temporary or permanent hair loss.
The damage that treatment can cause on one's physical body, including their scalp, that also is costly. There is psychological cost to having to do that as well, when that is not how you want to present yourself. So I think there are real costs involved, and rectifying that is also certainly a part of addressing this as a human right. This was one of those everyday indignities that unfortunately the law has gotten wrong and has been allowed to persist because people have just failed to come forward and say, no more. This is race discrimination. What I think that New York City has done is it has provided that first step. You know, sometimes it just takes, I think, some courage in leadership or some courage in the law to call out something for what it is. And so it is allowing other jurisdictions like California to say, we're not the first. Someone else has done it. It's time for us to do it too.
Hello there, and welcome to another Live with Dr. Dawn. I am your host, Dr. Dawn 𝗚𝗎𝗓, your expert in all things related to ADHD and mental health. I'm double boarded in child and adult psychiatry. I'm a sports psychiatrist for elite athletes, an ADHD expert, a two-time best-selling author, producer, public speaker, dynamic keynote speaker, that is, and media influencer. You can find me at drdawnpsychmd.com, and I look forward to being the next speaker for your event. But tonight, I'm your host, and I welcome my faithful followers, and I am excited to meet those of you who have tuned in for the first time to Live with Dr. Dawn show. Let me know that you're in the virtual space tonight. Go ahead, acknowledge your presence. Type your name, where you're from. Share that like button. Let's go ahead and welcome our new followers here. Hello there. What's up? How you doing? You've tuned into another special broadcast. And for the months of September and October, listen, I'm excited to highlight celebrity alumni from my alma mater, Xavier University of Louisiana, and who have been change agents in our world of politics, relationships, entrepreneurship, and comedy. There are others areas that we will highlight in weeks to come, but tonight, let's again focus on the area of civil rights. And what a better time than now. As I prepared for tonight's broadcast, I thought about how I could properly introduce my friend, one of the most prominent professors and legal activists of our generation. Well, to do her due diligence, here is some information from her brief bio. She's the daughter of American civil rights activist, a trailblazing anti-discrimination law scholar, teacher, and advocate who has devoted her professional life's work to advancing racial, color, and gender equality in workplaces and beyond. She's none other than Professor Doris Wendy Greene. Professor Greene is the first African-American woman tenured law professor at Drexel University, Thomas R. Klein School of Law. Through her legal scholarship and public advocacy, Professor Greene has generated historic civil rights protections for victims of discrimination in the workplace, schools, public accommodations, and in housing. Teen Vogue, Now This News, and BBC World News have celebrated Professor Greene for her pioneering scholarly activism that combats growing codes discrimination, and more specifically, the systemic discrimination African descendants suffer when donning natural hairstyles like afros and twists and braids and locks. Between serving as a legal advisor and expert for civil rights cases, challenging natural hair discrimination, co-drafting federal and state Crown Acts, testifying in support of this legal legislation throughout the country, and publishing legal scholarship used by lawyers and lawmakers, Professor Greene's work has informed, to date, every legal pronouncement in the United States on municipal, state, and federal levels that natural hair discrimination is unlawful race discrimination. As one of the world's leading legal experts on this global civil rights issue, Professor Greene frequently provides legal commentary to international media outlets such as the Washington Post and the BBC News, and she's the author of the forthcoming book, Free the Hair, Locking Black Hair to Civil Rights Movements, under contract with the University of California, Berkeley Press. Most recently, the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute celebrated Professor Greene's scholarly activism by selecting her to interview and present the Institute's highest honor, the Fred L. Shuttleworth Human Rights Award, to civil rights icon and one of my inspirations, Dr. Angela Y. Davis, on Juneteenth, 2020. She is another dear friend of mine, and she is also my chapter soar, my big sister of the Gamma Alpha chapter, Xavier University, Louisiana. Listen, you all, she is a sweet soul, a dear soul, an amazing person. I'm truly proud to know her and witness her plight as to what she has accomplished for us as African American, especially African American women. I've always admired Professor Greene's ambitious yet calming spirit, discussing matters that involve our culture. Tonight, you will leave our conversation feeling enlightened and empowered. Let's welcome our special guest with a live to Dr. Dawn platform in the virtual space. The only way we know how, you all. Go ahead, share those love buttons. I see you. I see you, Susan. Thank you so much for joining. Hi, Caviar. Thanks so much for joining. And let's go ahead and welcome Professor Doris Wendy Greene. Hi, Wendy.
Hi, Dr. Dawn.
Hello.
Thank you so much for that really just amazing introduction. I am just stunned, and my heart is just so full, and I'm just a tad bit embarrassed too. I have to be honest with you.
Well, I mean, when you're naturally walking in your brilliance, I mean, I can understand how seeing yourself on the screen and all that you have fought for, advocated for, and successfully won, and just to know that you've accomplished this, of course, with the help of others, but you led in the success of all of what you've accomplished. Yes, I can see how that can be humbling, but this is what you've done. And so we just wanted to celebrate you tonight and just to get to know who's behind the Free the Hair hashtag movement. This is her, you all. This is her. Brilliant. How are you feeling tonight? How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm a little bit emotional here because I like I told you right before we got on, you had already just filled my spirit with such warmth and generosity, and and I was already starting to get a tad bit emotional, and I was just trying my very best to hold on to these eyelashes for the next hour or so, but we'll see how that goes. We shall see how that goes. Tears are made for a reason, and I'm just expressing tears of joy today.
Amen to that. So I always like to start from the very beginning, the childhood memories, the what you remember growing up in South Carolina question, and how has that shaped who you are today?
Sure. So I grew up in Columbia, South Carolina, which is the capital of South Carolina. I am a proud South Carolinian of two parents who were just amazing parents, Milton and Doris Greene, the big Doris, and they were both civil rights activists as college students at again another historically Black college at Benedict College in Columbia, and then beyond. Both of my parents were educators, and part of my mom was an educator pretty much all of her professional career until she retired. And my dad was also an educator. He was a math teacher. My mom was an English teacher. And then he went on to get involved in some other things from that point. He was one of the first, actually, he was the first African-American legislative aide for a senator, a United States Senator, Fritz Hollings. So he was the first to come on board in that capacity throughout the state. Yeah, so my mom too, also a trailblazer like my dad, and was the first African-American woman to be on the international board for Habitat for Humanity in her role as one of our sorors for Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. And two, she integrated spaces, one of the first African-American women to be an educator at our local community college. So there's just so many things. I don't want to go into a whole, we only have limited time, but as you can see, they are and continue to be tremendous role models for me in terms of, using your gifts, your talents, your voice, your energy to impact your communities on local levels as well as on global levels in a positive way.
You stand on some strong shoulders there, Wendy. And it's not unusual for us to have the backgrounds that we have, that this is our due diligence, right? Of doing what we do and doing it proudly. But for many of us, it's a gift. And I can definitely say that for you, it's a true gift of what you've accomplished. Can I ask you what have been or who has been your true inspirations? I know you mentioned your parents, or other influences along the path or along your journey that you would like to acknowledge?
Sure. In addition to my parents, I have to say I've been so blessed because I've really been cultivated by a village of amazing people who really have just impacted and influenced our society in such incredible ways. And my parents definitely exposed my brother and my sister, my older brother and older sister. I'm the youngest, I'm the baby of the family. And definitely really helped to bring that village into our life, and so there are just so many people. And that's a blessing to be able to say there's just so many people, countless people, that is even hard for me to name. Because honestly, I will say if there was anything that I wanted to do in this world, my parents definitely tried to expose us or, expose us to those individuals. So from janitor to a judge, you could find that person. And so I've definitely been shaped by so many people. But in terms of, inspirations beyond my family, because there are so many people in my family beyond my parents too. I have to say, like my great aunt, Janie Goree, who was the first African-American mayor, a female mayor in South Carolina as well, and also one of our sorors. Was such an inspiration. My grandparents, to think back and think about the fact that on my dad's side, all of my grandmother and her sisters all were college educated during a time when that was really a challenging feat for Black people to actually get a higher education. And even to leave the state to do so. So I think about that. I think about my grandmother who then she had to leave school early in order to assist her parents and her family on their farm in a small town in South Carolina. And then after her children were grown and her grandchildren were here, she's like, I'm not going to sit around and watch my grandchildren all day, but what I will do, I'm going to go back to school. And she got her high school diploma. Wow. As a grandmother, and as a mother of four. And so she ensured that all of her children too would also receive, she and my grandfather also would receive a higher education, a college education. So just alone in my family, I've been inspired by many. Those are just a few. And I can't say one last thing. And also my siblings, you know, I have 2 siblings, as I mentioned before, and they have been immense inspirations for me as well. My sister is a retired colonel in the Air Force. And my brother too, I'm inspired by his creativity as an artist, and their determination, both of them. And so I have to say, there are just so many people just within my family that have just really shaped who I am, and I'm inspired by every day.
I mean, Mr. Santi Frank said it best, trailblazers. Come on, Green family. I mean, yes. How can you not name all those individuals, wonderful individuals, at a time where they actually excelled in academia when it was the most difficult, one of the most difficult times to do so. So just this talks and just tells of your family's determination, motivation. How about faith in God, in favor of God, to be able to do those things? So one of the things I want to ask you is why law? Why, as a law professor, this is the field you've chosen, and that has led you to become the first African-American law professor at the prestigious Drexel University in Philadelphia. Wow.
Yeah, well, I'm not the first African-American professor, but I'm the first. Yeah, I'm the first tenured African-American woman. So, right, I get it. I am. So why law? I will tell you, when I was a child, I was probably about 5 years old. And I think I had chicken pox, and my parents were old school. And if you were at home, you were still, even sick, you were still going to be constructive. You're going to do something constructive. And again, as educators, they ensured that we were reading all the time. I started reading, according to my mom, probably when I was about 2 or 3 years old. So, yeah. So, and my sister, because she taught me how to read. My sister and I are 12 years apart, so that also kind of explains this dynamic. Yeah. So in any event, I'm reading this book that my parents gave me on African American pioneers, and in that book, there was a feature story on Thurgood Marshall and Justice Thurgood Marshall, and that was the first time that I had become aware of Justice Thurgood Marshall. I had become aware of Jim Crow and his fight in terms of trying to dismantle Jim Crow. And it's in that reading that, because I had not even heard of this at this point, of this system of racial segregation and apartheid in this country. And I asked my mom, and I asked her a curious question now, but I know it was divinely planted inside of me. I was like, hey, well, what's this? What is this? You know, Jim Crow thing. And then on top of that, I asked her if Daddy had ever been to jail. And I don't really know why I asked it, other than I just knew that now in hindsight, it was divinely planted at me. And she told me yes. And he had gone to jail because of his participation in the sit-ins in Columbia, South Carolina, as a student at Benedict College. And so he was arrested along with his fellow student activists for criminal trespass. That's what they would charge you with. And then and went to jail for that. And then later on, his case was overturned by the United States Supreme Court, or the criminal conviction was overturned by the United States Supreme Court. So I say all that to say, yeah. So I did not know that part of the story until much later in life. Actually, when I was in law school, that's when I learned about that overturning by the Supreme Court of the criminal conviction. But it was in that moment that I became enraged, I became infuriated, and I became pretty much convicted to figure out, what is this thing called race? What is, why does it appear that of all of the groups and these groups in the world, the African descendants were the ones who were targeted for this dehumanizing treatment? And at that moment, I understood the role better understood the role that lawyers could play in trying to redress these long-standing forms of racial subordination. And so that's what really inspired me at that young age to think about being a civil rights activist or advocate, and ideally go to law school maybe one day. I don't know if I knew you had to go to law school, but at least pursue the legal profession as a professional route.
Wow. Did that also influence your decision to attend an HBCU as well?
I don't know if that specifically did, but what I will say is that I grew up on HBCU campuses. I grew up on between Benedict and Allen University campuses. And because, as I mentioned before, both of my parents graduated from Benedict, in addition to a host of aunts and uncles and cousins. My brother is a graduate of Benedict. My grandmother was a graduate of Allen. Both of my great aunts on that side of the family went to HBCU. So it's not that I didn't have a choice. I did. I did have a choice. But, I will tell you, my senior year in high school, I was accepted to, I don't remember, I was doing the most in my college applications. I will tell you, I think I applied to probably about 15 schools, and then I started visiting the different schools, right? And I was at Smith College in Massachusetts, which was great. It seemed like facts of life, but then I was like, but there are no boys, so I don't know about this. Oh, good. I'm not against same-sex education, to be clear. Let me just make that clear. I'm okay. So then I was like, okay, this is going to be that might be a little challenging. And then after, then I thought about it. I'd been one of the few African-American students in my honors and accelerated classes throughout middle school and throughout high school, even though I was in a very racially diverse school. And it was at that moment, I remember, I think I was at UNC and I had been accepted to the honors college there. And it was like, I don't want to be the only one. I don't want to be the only one anymore, at least for the next 4 years. Yeah, I have the rest of my life. And my mother used to tell me, you have the rest of your life to be the only one or one of the few. And so that's when I went to the library, back when people used to go to the library and check out books. I went and I checked out a book on HBCUs, and that's how I came across Xavier. Oh, it was my first time actually hearing about Xavier, and it was in New Orleans, and I requested a catalog, it was a hard copy catalog. And I marked that thing up with highlighters and everything else, trying to figure out what I could do if I went to Xavier, and I applied, and thankfully I did, and I got accepted and got a full tuition scholarship to attend. And so that could convince my father to let me go out of state. That was the only way. So that's
I'm sorry. I was going to ask you, had did you have to make a decision between HBCU and a not, or a PWI versus, was it Benedict College or another HBCU? And so, no, thankfully, on your own merit, you actually earned a full scholarship and you came to Xavier University, where we met. And I'm so happy that you did. I'm having a selfish moment here because as I told you before, and I want to express it publicly, you are one of my true inspirations, always have been. And it's just your sweet spirit. You're very approachable. I remember meeting you for the very first time. I was actually wanting to be a zz𝗓, wanting to, I wanted to pledge Delta. I came from a family of Deltas and Omegas. And, I attended my mom's meetings when I was young, when she started backwards. Yes. And so, yes. And, what's interesting is that when you go to a HBC, or you go to any school for that matter, you just hope that the chapter there just, it defines what you know to be true, that these are wonderful women who are educated, who are well-versed, who are, approachable, empathetic, engaging, and who are doing, excuse my language, the damn thing, right? And that's what I found in Gamma Alpha. Every single 𝗓𝗓, is doing the damn thing. And I wanted to be a part of that. And so, thank you. Thank you for being one of my, initial inspirations at Xavier. And you keep me going. Your work keeps me going. And so I appreciate that. But I want to ask you, what's your most memorable moment? Or one of your most memorable moments at Xavier?
There's so many. Well, as I said, you guys have a much better memory than I do. I'm old.
Shout out to my line sisters, Fall 98.
Y'all have excellent memories. That's all I can say. You can remember all the things. I will say the most memorable moments. I mean, there's so many, but fond moments that I think about today, especially in preparation of our conversation. Moving into Katy and to Catherine Drexel, Residence Hall, and the long nights of studying. We studied hard. Now, that's one thing I loved about Xavier's. We worked hard, we studied hard, but we played hard. And that is one of the beautiful things. There was definitely a good balance in terms of that. And it was okay and actually expected for you to be smart and to show that off. It was not a bad thing to be a nerd. You were not stigmatized for that. There was healthy competition. And I really appreciated that. So we worked really hard. We studied really hard. We studied all night long. But we played hard too. So one of the things I remember the most is about being on the 5th floor of Katy. That was considered the pit house. The pit house. Yeah, you had the bigger rooms. That was the new addition.
Frank, I think, had one of those rooms.
Yes, yes. So I was fortunate my freshman year to have that room, and then again second year with my roommates, and being able to see the yard. You could see the whole yard. You could see when Snappy came. You could see when people were coming out. That was fun. To just have that experience and like laughing all night long, joking around, going to the parties. Yeah. So many parties.
So many.
That's like a big, massive group. It'd be like 30 girls going to this party and get all ready to go. It was always so much fun. Trying to get back to Katy before the curfew. That was always a struggle. Yeah, that was definitely a struggle. So many moments. So many moments. But those are just a few of those things. When celebrities came to campus, that was always a highlight or a feature too. I remember Groove Theory being on campus. And when Groove Theory, everybody was just like losing their minds. Playing basketball, in the gym, everybody lost their mind.
I know, especially when Dillard came in the building. That was a rivalry, right? Yeah. That was the game of the year is when Dillard came on campus.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. All the basketball games, just so many things I can remember. All good times. Absolutely. And great. Relationships and that were created there, lifelong relationships. Some of my dearest friends to this day come from Xavier and from those moments in the dorm, those moments as peer deans, the first week of orientation. Some of my best friends are still, I literally met the first day of orientation, the first day I stepped foot on Xavier's campus.
Yes. And, isn't that interesting how that works? One of my first friends was 𝗓𝗎𝗓 Brown.
Yeah. Wow.
The first person I met her on the parking lot of KD, and she came over to my family car and asked if we need any help moving in. Yeah. And to this day, I just talked to her last week. To this day, yes.
Great. Well, tell 𝗓𝗎𝗓 I said hello. That's exactly how it happened. Like Rhea and Adrian and I, we were in the same group with Maya. Oh gosh, yeah. I remember
the crew.
Yeah. So there's like the Texas crew. Everybody from Texas, everybody from Detroit, everybody from Chicago, everybody from California. You had all that going on, and that's the one other thing I really appreciated about Xavier, the geographical diversity. Really, you had all these different crews of people from everywhere, which was really such a blessing to be around. It was always so much fun too. So yeah, that was one of the few. I think it was only 2 or 3 of us from South Carolina, but that's okay.
We all represented proudly.
I try to represent South Carolina. But so many good memories.
Yes, indeed. So from Xavier, here's your first job. What was your first job, Wendy?
Oh, my first job ever in life was actually as a receptionist at a hair salon.
Okay. Was that before Xavier?
Yeah. No, I've been working a long time. So yeah, I've been working since technically I was 14 14, almost 15 years old. Yeah, so I was a receptionist at a hair salon in Columbia, and yeah, so that was my first job. While I was in, and then I worked at a video store back when you could, what was that thing called? Suncoast Motion Picture Company. I don't know if you remember that. That might have been before your time. Yeah.
No, I'm shaking my head too because I've always wanted to work in a video store. I don't know why. Just like
it was kind of fun until I got reprimanded and I kind of got fired. But that's a whole other story. I wasn't a bad employee, but what happened is that there was a policy against, I guess against you assisting a family member, which I was unaware of. And I assisted a family member, and then I was fired because of that. But yeah, that was Suncoast Motion Picture Company. It was sort of like the Blockbuster, but you didn't rent the movies; you actually bought the movies.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So
I guess were my first jobs.
And so at what point did you want to become pursue or become motivated in pursuing a career, in legal academia, or, because I know you have other areas of specialties as well.
Right.
Let's first talk about the legal academia. Did you always inspire to be a law professor?
I felt like at one point throughout my life, I kind of like vacillated between whether or not I was going to be a teacher. At one time, I thought it was a teacher, a pediatrician, or a lawyer. And that was also one of the things that attracted me to Xavier, because I felt like, whatever I wanted to do, I could do that through this education. I could do that through Xavier. And so when I went to Xavier, I was still sort of torn about exactly which path I wanted to take. And so I was an English major in African American Studies and Spanish double minor. And I was torn between either getting a PhD in comparative literature and then becoming a professor, or going to law school. And then it was, I guess, probably junior year. I think it was my junior year or senior year at Xavier that I decided that I was going to go the law school route. And on my personal statements for law school, actually, I said I wanted to be a civil rights lawyer. I wanted to learn how to implement legislation, civil rights legislation, to lobby for it, to enact legislation, civil rights legislation, specifically as it relates to race and gender inequality. And then thirdly, ultimately, I wanted to be a law professor so I could teach my students how to do the same. And it's a blessing to say I've been able to accomplish all three of those goals.
Awesome. Yes, it is. And as your brief career as a receptionist in a hair salon, is that where you had these type of first discussions or conversations, the importance of African women and their hair? Because not only is that salon where we get our hair done, that's where we have therapy. That's where we have our crying moments. That's where we talk about being a mother and a sister and all these other roles we have. I mean, that's kind of our woman's moment, our ladies' time. And so with that, I mean, I believe that that's conditioned us to also appreciate our ancestry, our community, our sisterhood, and our hair, right? And our hair. Do you feel that having that early exposure in the salon, that's led you to some of the accomplishments that you've had in our country?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. That whole experience of getting your hair done, or like for me, hating to get my hair done.
I know that too.
Yeah, just hating to get it done, especially with straightened. And oh gosh, I hated that whole thing.
Hot comb.
Oh gosh, yeah. No, I know. I just think about that. Actually, I probably still have a little PTSD from the hot comb and being burned by the hot comb. And relaxers too, I will tell you. as well. And
Mhm.
absolutely, those experiences, and to be clear, I thank you for pointing out there are joyous experiences too. It's not all
Mhm.
painful, it's not all harmful, but there's definitely a joyous experience about the community that is created in these spaces. And you know, so from a very early age, you know, I think just being enthralled by the process. You know, I've always been enthralled by creativity and innovation, and that was one ways in which I enjoyed being in the hair salon. To be honest, I like to see everybody else get their hair done. So let me
Yeah.
clarify that. And seeing, you know, the before and after.
Mhm.
So for me, when I got to law school, I came across cases you know, federal civil rights cases where Black women in particular were challenging natural hair bans in their workplaces, and came across this precedent that basically said that, you know, discrimination on the basis of afros constitutes unlawful race discrimination. But if you lock or braid or twist that afro, then magically it's no longer about race. And it is not race discrimination. And that basically gave employers free reign to regulate our natural hairstyles and the
Mhm.
ways in which we were showing up in the world and showing up in our workplaces. And that to me was it was unjust.
Right.
And those legal precedents really creates an injustice as it relates
Mhm.
to African American people. And in this case, it was dealing with African American women. And so definitely my experience as an African American woman, absolutely, and the experiences of my hair journey as an African American woman absolutely then motivated me even more to try to see how I could redress what I thought was a legal injustice
Wow.
um, under the law, you know,
Mhm.
and created by the law. And so that's, yeah, so definitely during law school, that definitely lit a fire seeing those cases, that I wanted to do something about it. And then I went on to law school again and got a master's in law, where that's where at George Washington University. So I went to law school the first time. I got my JD from Tulane, and then went on to GW, and it's in that study on comparative slavery and race relations law in the Americas and the Caribbean, as well as employment discrimination law, is that study that really led to my first publication, Title VII, What's Hair and Other Race-Based Characteristics Got to Do with It. And that publication is where I offered a definition of race that is now being used in the Crown Acts and other civil rights enforcement guidance.
Yeah.
And that has been endorsed by the American Bar Association, that's been endorsed by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, also cited by the 11th Circuit. So,
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Leaving your mark, Wendy. Leaving your mark. Seriously. And is that what inspired the Free the Hair movement that has come about? That's
yeah,
founded by you as well?
yeah, so absolutely. So the Free the Hair movement is all about trying to bring about to activate social and legal policy and personal change as it
Yeah.
relates to natural hair bias and discrimination, so that we can dismantle these biases and prejudices and policies that are informed by it.
Mhm.
And ultimately, so that Black women, boys, girls, men, um, can rock our hair freely and freely rock our hair as it grows out of our heads. So that's really where, you know, because this to me is so much a part of our liberation struggle, not only in the United States, but around the world. This is a very central part. And I say that because, you know, our hair has been the basis of racial enslavement in this country and in other parts of the world. And it continues to be a basis of racial subjugation and stigmatization and exclusion in this country, as well as other parts of this world.
Mhm.
And so for me, you know, is such a central part. Is probably an under discussed and under examined part, an
Mhm.
oversimplified part of it, but is a really critical part because our freedom has been on the basis of not only our skin color in this country, but also our hair texture and our hairstyles that flow from it.
That's right. It brings me back to a moment in my childhood where, when I was growing up and attending basically diverse school, even within the Black, groups, we would always identify, well, she has good hair, he has good hair. And what does that good hair mean? Like you said, all hair is good hair. And so, you know, even the racial, conversations were going on when we were very little. We were very little. We really didn't know what good hair meant. And so, you know, it's just interesting how looking back, you know, and thinking how that has also brought about my still permed hair, and wanting me to really want to transform into having my natural hair and wearing it proudly. I think just right now it's just been crazy going on, but I already told Dr. Jarrett, I was like, I'm gonna go natural. I just gotta do it. I just gotta go for it.
Process. It is a process. Don't get me wrong. It took me, you know, almost 30 years to do it, right? But it took me literally having to really come to grips with the fact that I was having an abusive relationship with my hair, because my hair it just can't take, you know, extreme heat or chemical relaxants, and it would, you know, it would grow when you put the perm on the relaxer, and then it would break off. Like one side of my hair would just like break off, and then I'd have to cut it off and start all over again. Right? I don't know why it took me, you know, almost 25 years to figure that out. I was like, maybe it's that relaxer, you know, and I want to blame it on the different types of relaxers, you know, and it was like, no, you just can't do it. You can't. And so it was at that moment, I will tell you, like around when I was 29. I said, for my 30th birthday, I am just going to wash and go, and we will just see how this thing looks, and we're going to roll with it. And honestly, ever since then, I haven't looked back. Yeah. So, and I will say I was in an environment at that time too, where it was conducive to do that. You know, I was living in DC. There were products on the shelves. You know, there were new natural hair products that were coming out every day. There were hairstylists who would help you try to transition, you know, and they were not trying to force, you know, what we know is the creamy crack on me.
I'm an addict. I'm telling you.
I was too. But I would say when I was in New Orleans, that was the start of it. When I was in law school, my hairstylist there, Greg, I love Greg. And he really was trying to wean me off, you know, like, and he would not give me a touch up, you know, like every 4 to 6 weeks, like I was accustomed to. And he could tell that my hair had been over processed, because people would look at it and they say, oh gosh, you have such thick hair. And then they would put like, you know, these additional, you know, too strong of a relaxer on my hair, and it was breaking down my cuticle, right? It was making it weak. And so he could figure that out. And he would not put a relax. I mean, I probably went like 2 or 3 months without getting a touch up in New Orleans. Now, with that being said, I would use my research money to get my hair done every 10 days. Like,
I know that's right.
Every Thursday, I was at Greg's shop. Okay?
That's one thing we're going to do every week. We're going to get our hair done.
No, we're going to get our hair done, right? But that's what I would use my money for when I was a research assistant. So those federal work study funds went to good use.
One of your best friends, I know, Chantel. Hey, we need to do more of this for sure. We definitely do. We definitely do. And Cherie says she goes to Greg till this day.
I do too.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, I have stylists like in every kind of major city that I frequent. And so he's one of them. So he is, and so Cherie says too, Greg is the reason why she went natural. I mean, he is a lifesaver, literally a lifesaver. In that regard. And so that's really what started the process. I didn't really get a hold of it until probably, 6 years later when I was living in DC. But like I said, ever since then, I haven't gone back.
I know that's right. And just to think of how that actually harms our hair on the outside, think of what it's doing to the inside, the hormones, right? Yeah.
Oh, no, this is absolutely, when people don't realize these, what I call invisible harms of natural hair discrimination, which in turn for Black women and girls is about trying to conform to straight hair pressures, expectations, and mandates, right? Whether they be personal spaces, those types of pressures, or in our professional spaces, and educational spaces, right?
Right.
And
Yes.
the chemical relaxants that we are putting on our hair over a long period of time, research shows that there is potential correlation between uterine fibroids, more aggressive forms of uterine cancer, more aggressive forms of breast cancer, hormonal infertility.
Ooh.
Oh yeah, and as well as with respect to Black girls, greater likelihoods of higher rates of hormonal activity. Right. So this has everything to do with our reproductive health. It has everything to do with our physiological health. It has everything to do with, in addition to that, we're losing our hair. So there's that. So whether it's on a temporary basis or on a permanent basis, we're suffering, alopecia among other types of hair loss conditions. And then, as Black women, when we get our hair straightened, more often than not, wigs or weaves to conform to a straight hair look, more often than not, we're not exercising, right? And so that too has health-related consequences and impacts. And so when I talk about this issue, I always say, if you care about Black women's health, you have to care about our hair.
Amen. I'm going to make my appointment as soon as I get off of here with you. I was not aware. I really was not aware of I knew some of the hormonal impact, but I was not aware of all the other associated medical conditions that you've stated. And so definitely, okay. No, that's really good knowledge to know.
Yeah, no, and so when I do my whole spiel on this whole thing, I am able to get into these physiological, these emotional, these physical, as well as emotional impacts, in addition to the economic impacts. In terms of the amount of money that we're spending, the amount of time that we're spending in order to achieve these straight hair styles. And again, I'm not knocking straight hair at all. That is not about free the hair. Free the hair is for you to be able to rock it however you so choose.
Of course, but you're not lying though either, Wendy, because the time and the money. Right. I mean, I'm OCD about my hair because it's a part of what people first see.
Right.
And it's interesting how that has come to be a part of how I, kind of routinely just get up and do things.
Mm-hmm.
And so, man, I'm learning. This is therapy for me.
Well, it's a critical part of who we are, and don't get me wrong. It took me a minute to re-envision myself. Yeah. Not with straight hair, because I'd been rocking straight hair for so long, for the vast majority of my life, where I didn't even know my natural hair. Many of us don't even know what our natural hair texture even feels like, and looks like, and how to maneuver it and manipulate it, So that is something that, I really had to really come to grips with and learn how to love. Another part of me that I had to learn how to love and cultivate. And I'm glad that I did. I mean, there is definitely some freedom. I will tell you, don't get me wrong, it's still a process, and it can still be difficult.
Well, I can't wait, because I'm gonna ring that freedom bell as soon as I get there. Definitely let you know. And so let's talk about the Crown Act, because I think that's very important especially your role in its development and its success. So what is the Crown Act, and want to give an understanding to those who are not aware the significance of the Crown Act?
Sure. It is the Creating a Respectful and Open World for Natural Hair Act. And it's also in California, it's classified as the Creating a Respectful and Open Workplace for Natural Hair Act. And so what effectively the Crown Act does is that the Crown Act really tries to clarify. So if you go back to what I was talking about before with the federal courts that had declared that afros, discrimination on the basis of afros constitutes unlawful race discrimination under our federal civil rights laws. But if you lock, braid, or twist the afro, then you're no longer protected under our federal civil rights laws if there's discrimination on those grounds, right? So that leads to this, what I call a hyper-regulation or policing of Black people's bodies via our hair. And as we just talked about, it has, significant harms and negative consequences, right? So what the Crown Act does, it really tries to address this very specific form of race discrimination that African descendants systematically encounter throughout the United States and around the world. And in doing so, it is also clarifying our definition of race. And so under federal court jurisprudence, basically discrimination on the basis of what they call immutable characteristics. That is unlawful race discrimination. And what they mean by that is that immutable characteristics are those that you cannot change, characteristics that you are born with, or that only a certain group possesses. Just kind of deconstruct that. And so from that, they say, well, an afro is something that only Black people have, or all Black people have. Now let's think about that. Is that true?
No, not at all.
No. And this is why I call this doctrine an immutable, a legal fiction, right?
Right.
So it limits the kind of protection that we have under our civil rights laws. And what the Crown Act does, it basically rejects that definition, that very limited definition that has been used in these cases. And it redefines, or I don't say redefines, it clarifies that discrimination is on the basis of mutable or changeable characteristics that have been associated with racial groups, like our hair texture, like our hairstyles, natural hairstyles, and beyond. And so that definition, is what I talked about, what I proposed in my 2008 article, which is now the definition of race that's being used in the Crown Act. The Crown Act. So good news on that front. We have the United States House of Representatives that just passed the Crown Act last Monday.
Sorry, we have to pause.
Oh, okay.
Congratulations.
I was like, where are my clap reactions?
I know. I'm looking for those emojis, y'all. Come on, where's the emojis? Congratulations, Wendy. That's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you. It's been a long road, I'll tell you. I have been talking with federal legislators probably since about 2013, 2014, saying that we needed to amend or clarify our civil rights laws in this regard because of this systematic form of racial discrimination that was occurring in our workplaces, and it was occurring without any kind of regulation. Again, employers were free. And continue to be free and to discriminate on these grounds, except for in 7 states and in some municipalities. So the Crown Act has been passed in 7 states. It has also been passed, or some resolutions to this effect have been passed in several cities. And we saw before, the New York City Commission on Human Rights was the first to draft enforcement guidance on a municipal level that treats natural hair discrimination as race discrimination.
Wow. Empowering. Very empowering. What's next for the Crown Act? And how can people become involved in supporting this initiative?
Sure. So what's next for the Crown Act? Well, it has to go to the Senate. On the federal level, it has to go to the Senate. So we need all kinds of support to make that happen, for it to be passed on the Senate level. So what that means is that you can contact your United States senators and let them know that you support the Crown Act and that it needs to be passed, and it needs to be passed, without hopefully any opposition. Now I can't sit here and guarantee that, but that would be great. And then. In addition to that, there is the Crown Act petition that you can sign at crownact.com. There's activity that's happening on the municipal and state levels as well. The Crown Act has been introduced, at least last legislative sessions, in almost half of the states. So you can contact your state legislators and ask them if they haven't already introduced or filed something that to do so. Or those that have, contact those and really advance the ball on that front. So you use your voice, and you can do that by calling them, by emailing them, I'm sure by tweeting them, contacting their representatives, and use your voice to effectuate this policy change.
Let's wear them out, y'all. Let's wear them out. Do you
Yeah,
hear me?
yeah,
Email, phone, tweet, DM, IM, whatever you need to do in
yeah,
order to make sure that this Crown Act is passed in every state of
yeah,
the United States of America.
yeah,
All right, in every single
yeah,
state. That's
yeah.
what we're going for. Yes.
No,
Exactly.
absolutely. And from there, educating people.
Yes.
Even if we don't have the law, that's the thing about, legislation. It can only do so much, right? And so another part of it is that we have to educate ourselves. We have to dismantle those prejudices and those biases. As I talk about this, I always say natural hair discrimination, as you mentioned before, is interracial and it's intraracial. It's an equal opportunity form of discrimination, unfortunately.
Right.
Right. So we have to educate ourselves about this, the systematic nature of it and its harms, and hopefully that too will shape or reshape our minds, and to free our minds, so that more people can feel free to rock their hair freely.
I know that's right. What, so this is a question that we often get asked when we're going to law school, med school, maybe even undergrad. Can you talk about your strengths and your weaknesses? And I think this is really geared towards those who are motivated to be, thinking about becoming lawyers, those who want to go to college, those, let's talk to our young folk for a minute. Yeah, is there anything you want to share about your strengths, your weaknesses, any regrets you've had along your journey, anything that you would ask your, 13 or 18-year-old self, remind yourself of that time that now? Is there anything you want to share about those things? I know I asked you like 3 questions within
Oh,
that.
it's fine. No, it's all good.
I look at the time and I respect your time, but hopefully we can go a little bit longer if that's okay.
Sure, no.
Okay,
As
good.
you can see, one of my strengths is I have the gift of gab.
Me too. Yes. But this conversation is so powerful. It's so powerful. And you are the moment, Wendy. So, I really would like to talk about the strengths, weaknesses that you have experienced or have learned from, overcome.
Oh, right. So, my I don't know. It's hard to say because I feel like, things that are my strengths can also be my weaknesses. So there's that duality there. I feel like that I am constantly struggling with, trying to seek some balance as it relates to that. Um, that is my goal every single year to actualize balance because I'm an extremist. So I can go all the way in or do absolutely nothing. And so you gotta get me right in the middle. I think in terms of those strengths, really being an empathetic person, being able to really appreciate someone else's experience beyond your own, to try to see yourself in their shoes. I think that's an important quality to have, generally speaking, but definitely as a lawyer or a civil rights advocate. I think another maybe strength to that point is really trying to be able to bring people together who are who may have opposite opinions and perspectives about things while still respecting one another's differences and opinions. Um, I think in terms of another strength, one thing, especially in this profession or any kind of service profession, we're all in public service professions. So that's another part of it, like recognizing that's what you're doing. You are a public servant. And that it requires a lot of generosity of your time and your energy in ways in which I probably did not fully appreciate as a child who sought to be a pediatrician or a teacher or a lawyer. All of those professions require a lot of time and energy that you are giving to others. That being said, the weaknesses part is that because of that, sometimes it's hard for me to say no.
Yes.
And you have to say no in order to preserve our peace of mind, our strength of mind, to preserve our clarity, to preserve, even the purpose, right, that has been placed inside of you. So you don't get derailed and distracted, right, by saying yes to all of these, things, and being okay with saying no, right? That is something that I have definitely had to really work through as a professional, as an adult,
Yes.
which I probably would not have imagined as a child.
Mhm.
So that's something I would tell myself as a young person too. If I could go back, it's okay to say no, and you're not a bad person for saying no.
Mhm.
You know?
Amen. Amen. I agree. I definitely would credit that to being one of my strong weaknesses.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it helped lead me to become a psychiatrist because I could actually help people and make a job out of it. Like you can be a lawyer and help people, you know what I'm saying? And making sure their rights are protected. I mean, we are, like you're saying, in the help field. And it's difficult when this is your profession because part of it becomes, you're good at it because it's who you are, right? Like all the things you mentioned, the empathy, the having the respect for someone else, the motivation, the dedication to time, the commitment to your service, like all of those things are going to make you the best at what you do.
Right.
But it's not all what you do.
It's not all what you do.
Yeah,
Right.
I know there's sometimes you don't want to be a professor. You just want to be Doris. You just want to be Wendy. You know what I'm saying? So I get it. I get it.
Right.
So
No, absolutely. Yeah. You don't always want to be Dr. Dawn, right? Or Professor Greene. It's just
I know.
There's days I joke and I was like, I want to be a cocktailista. I'm gonna, these days when I go out, I tell people all the time, people ask, oh, what do you do? Or whatever, you meet them. Well, back pre-COVID times, you would
Right.
be talking about. Oh, what do you do? And I'm like, I'm a barista, because
That's right.
I don't want to have to sometimes engage in that, and that opens up a whole other can of worms once you start telling people. So yeah, sometimes I do have a couple of, aliases as I go about.
I do too. I do the same thing. I don't know if people anticipate it or if they even consciously aware. But as soon as I say what I do, first, one of the jokes is, well, you can read my mind. And then the other joke is that it's not really a joke. They just go into the therapy session. And I'm like in the room and I have no idea that they're in the therapy session. And listen, there's no offense for people who are doing that. I just feel that it's our gift.
You're not understanding that you are not yet in a professional relationship with this person.
Right. And a wise person's always told me you don't practice, psychiatry outside of your office. And I'm like, oh, that's perfect. That's perfect because I'm saying no to the moment, but at some point we can definitely, you schedule an appointment with me and let's talk.
We can continue that conversation, right?
Exactly. And it was important for me to understand it from you because you are so, every time I look, you're just very busy woman. And there's a lot, you're a professor, just within that realm, that role, I can only imagine the time, the commitment, sacrifice that you made in being a professor at such a prestigious university. And then you have, the Crown Act and Free Your Hair corporation or company, and you wrote a book, and that's
writing a book. Writing a book. I'll say that. It is a work in progress. I am inspired. So speaking of inspirations, I am inspired by people like you, like my friends like you, who are out here cranking these books out. I don't know how you do it in the midst of everything else you have going on. I have a dear friend who's my life coach and friend, 𝗟𝗢𝗡𝗚𝗚, or 𝗟𝗢𝗡𝗚𝗚 Washington, who just wrote a book, and I'm like, this is amazing. So you guys are inspiring me to get this book done. But yeah, you're right. There's so many different hats that you're having to wear. Someone just asked me, are you still teaching? I was like, yeah, I do. I still have my classes. I still have my students. I still have, mentees. And I still, I'm still doing those things. And so to that point, you do have to say no, even though it may be something that you really may enjoy. I have to learn how to restrain myself. And to say that in order to preserve, again, my peace and my sanity and my physical and emotional well-being too. Because one thing, you can push and try to do all the things. And then you'll find yourself, God will find a way to stop you, right? Your body will find a way to tell you too. And I've been there. You know, I've been there where I have suffered from, you know, pneumonia because I was just going like too hard, not even realizing how much I was going. And at that moment, I was like, okay, we've got to just, you have to learn how to say no. And that's always a constant struggle too. I'm not saying I've mastered it,
Right.
but creating those, as Cherrie said, creating those strong boundaries is definitely a work in progress. And that is something that I am striving towards every single day.
Amen. Have there been any other obstacles, and they can be racial related, discrimination, that you've had to overcome along your journey?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't think there is any time when you're occupying these bodies that you'll never face discrimination. I think one of the hard parts about discrimination today, in ways in which I always tell my mom, maybe during the time when she was or both of my parents, when they were integrating spaces and becoming professionals, is that it's very subtle, right? Much more subtle than it was, say, 20, 30, 40 years ago. And I will tell you, it is an interesting part to have experienced discrimination, and whether it be on the basis of my race and gender as a Black woman, or sometimes race, gender, and perceived age, because there are a lot of people who probably, a lot of my students even, who probably perceive me as being younger than what I am. And I'm just going to thank God for good genes on that one. You know, so all of those things. Even sometimes, you know, there's discrimination, you know, I will say there's the elitism factor, even within education, or just education more broadly speaking, right? A lot of people not even understanding the greatness and the excellence that HBCUs produce, for example. And so that has played itself out in my journey as well. So trying to combat all of these isms has been very interesting, as a person who is actually trying to teach my students how to also combat them, identify them, and how to bring about policies and practices that are not, you know, like bringing about equality and equity in the workplace. So at the same time, I'm trying to teach my students these things, and I'm having to, you know, how to be advocates. And in that same time, I'm having to be a better advocate for myself.
Yes.
And that can be somewhat, it's challenging. I can just say that. And so also I say that to say that those experiences of race discrimination and gender discrimination and age discrimination that I know that I've suffered in my profession as a law professor, you know, they have helped me to become a better advocate for myself and for others.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Growth.
Yeah.
You know, and it doesn't take away from the hurt, the pain.
Right.
Sometimes, you know, the guilt, the shame that needs to be released as well. The things we carry, things that are burned into us that we shouldn't have ever, you know, had to manage or deal with. But the growth it's beauty and growth. It's a beautiful process, even though it doesn't always feel good.
No, it doesn't.
And right.
No, you know, it's horrible, right? It's toxic. Discrimination, and I'm just using this in terms of the workplace. It's toxic, and it has, again, real impacts. And I will say there was a moment, you know, where I seriously thought about leaving academia, even though I had done all these things and had achieved, you know, all of these things. These great accomplishments, there was definitely a critical moment where I thought about leaving and doing something completely different.
Yeah.
And thankfully, by the grace of God, you know, I have wonderful family and friends who really helped to support me through those really trying times, and to let me know that, you know, your voice still matters, to really inspire me to keep going on. And you know, all I can say is that it's just by the grace of God, having that community, again, that village that I was talking about before, that really just helped to give me the in my faith, in my absolute faith that I was fulfilling God's purpose and calling for my life. But even in that, God doesn't guarantee us that it's going to be easy, right?
That's it. That's it. That's it.
Yeah, that you have to appreciate that even while you're fulfilling your purpose and the calling and doing those things, that it's still not necessarily, it's going to have its challenges. And so I just thank, God for really just providing me with such a great, deep community of people that I've met along the way that really helped me to push beyond, those particular challenges as it relates to race and gender and even age discrimination. And it's not to say I won't ever deal with it again, but what I do know is I'm better prepared to do that.
That's it. I want to pause for any student, any young person who is actually viewing this, who is at a point of wanting to give up, who sees this COVID situation as their time to easily back down and say, I don't want to do this anymore, for whatever reason, that, those thoughts kind of come into your mind, that there is a reason why you're going through this. And so with Professor Wendy, I just want to piggyback on what she said, is that, sometimes we have to go through things to allow us to grow, to strengthen our faith. So it can lead to the Crown Act. It can lead to Free the Hair. It can lead to speak in front of the House of Representatives and pass laws and things of that nature. But God will not give you what more than you can bear, and He will give you supportive family. He'll give you friendships, longtime friendships, and of people who are going to support you along the way, and just gentle reminders. So don't give up. Don't give up. Professor Wendy is definitely an example, a great example of a person who's not given up, yet has been very successful in accomplishing something that I could have ever imagined to be accomplished in my lifetime. So is there any advice that you would give your younger self? I know we asked this question before, but now that we've gone through the questioning of obstacles and successes and just self-awareness, is there anything else that you would, tell your younger self at this point?
Well, I think there's that. You really hit on it. Don't give up, and to give yourself grace.
Yes.
I definitely say give yourself grace. We try to control so much, so give yourself grace and allow yourself to feel all of the things that you're feeling. That disappointments will come, but they definitely help to make you into a stronger person. And I don't mean to sound hokey when I say that, but I know that the disappointments and the rough road at times has, definitely helped me to become a stronger person, a more faithful person, and faith-filled person. To that point, I would tell my younger self, you often all the time, you just got to let go, let God work, the plan, to fall back, to fall back. All the pieces are going to come together. You'll think all the dots will be connected, and you have to have absolute trust and faith in that. It's like this uncrazy. People thought I was crazy. To be honest with you, there were people who thought I was crazy for even addressing this issue in legal scholarship and in my teaching and in my advocacy, but even to pursue a career as a legal academic. To be honest, they thought that was crazy, right? So to not be constrained by other people's ideas of what's supposed to be in the world.
Yes.
To be in the world.
Yes. And their limitations of themselves and you as well.
Right.
It's often a reflection of them, but
a reflection of their own limitations, right? And their own experiences. But so to continue to live your life, with great vision, to live it authentically, to do something every day that gives you joy, absolute, just unrestrained joy, and to try to do that for other people as well.
There's a saying that says haters are my motivators, and how I look at that for what it is. Yeah. But I also look at that for the people that have limitations of themselves or of us, which again is often reflective of them. We are a blessing to them as well. it comes full circle.
Right.
And the hope is that they now view themselves to be able to accomplish something that they didn't ever think they would accomplish.
Right.
So,
yeah.
and that.
No, you're right. No, absolutely. So two quotes there. One of my mom's best friends always says, if you don't have any haters, you're not doing something right.
That's right.
But that being said, you know, I remember when I was being bullied as a child in school, and I would come home and I'd tell my parents about it. And one thing my mom used to say, she was like, you know, not stand up for yourself. Absolutely stand up for yourself in those moments. You know, whether it be in bullying, whether it be like I was mentioning in terms of discrimination, you got to stand up for yourself. But, you know, you have to also appreciate that a lot of that is coming from somebody else's insecurities, right? And they see something in you that they are attracted to and they like. So take it as a compliment. Okay. So there's two parts of that, right? Taking it as a compliment, but also still standing up for yourself and being an advocate for yourself. And I still remember that, you know, until this day. So even when I am faced with folks who may be, you know, haters, you know, who may be discouragers, who don't understand my vision and who may try to limit it or try to derail me or suppress it. I absolutely have to take that as I'm doing something right in the world, and also to know, you know, to take it as a form of a compliment.
That's right. Exactly. Wow. So, Wendy, I know you love to travel just like me. We are travel queens in our own right? Wanderlust. I'm wondering, how are you doing during this time? Have you replaced that hobby with something else? Like, what do you like to do for fun? What do you like to do to let your...
Well, dream about traveling.
So I'm not the only one that's having those dreams, I see.
No, not at all. I am so dreaming. I'm hoping that the world will open up again and we're on punishment by 2021. You know, because it would be great to be able to travel. In the meantime, you know, I would say I've been hunkering down at home in South Carolina. I was here when COVID erupted, and I was in South Carolina, not expecting to be here this long, but it's been a blessing, you know, to be at home with my family. And so what that's allowed me to do is kind of, I guess, become a little bit more domesticated. Because with the work that I've been doing, it doesn't really allow for a lot of time to cook and for myself. And so I really like to cook for not just myself, but really for other people. So it's allowed me to test out some new recipes, or it's allowed me, as you know, from Instagram, some new cocktails.
But I cannot wait to taste. And the food. I didn't know about the food part, so.
Yeah, I do that too. I do cook. Yeah. Again, contrary to popular belief, I absolutely cook. So it brings me joy, I tell you. And that was one of the ways I have to stay in my family. You know, that's how you show love, is through food. And so that is such a huge part of who I am and what, again, brings me joy every single day. I'm a foodie. So trying out new recipes, whether it be food or cocktails. I am talking with my friends, you know, through like happy hours. We come up, you know, virtual happy hours, and, you know, definitely trying to remain in touch as much as we possibly can, you know, being in contact with one another. And again, you know, doing some of the small things and big things that bring other people joy. As well as myself. And so that's really what it is, just trying to cultivate a joyful environment and trying to maintain my peace. That is, that's what I've been doing.
Awesome.
Yeah, in addition to freeing the hair.
Yes, I know that's right. Oh, this has been one amazing conversation. Wendy, I was definitely looking forward to having you on. And when you said yes, it takes my friend, because I think we were on the phone, and I just started screaming. I was just like, you said yes. I think I DM'd you or something like that. And I think I don't know if I had your phone number at the time. And I mean, without any hesitation, I opened, and it was like immediately you replied. And I just thank you. Thank you so much. my platform is about informing, educating, having a good time, but just kind of getting an understanding of who the person is, not just all the what they do. We want to celebrate you and all that you've accomplished and will continue to accomplish, but we also want to get just a little bit of who Wendy is.
Sure.
And I think that's important behind any movement. That
absolutely. There is a person, behind the movement, a real person who's dealing with everyday things that everybody else is dealing with. And we have to really, again, I think really appreciate that humanity, and so I'm just like everybody else, ordinary person who has been really blessed to do at this point some pretty
extraordinary things.
So
sorry, I tried to say that with you. Yes.
It's not by myself, like you say. It takes a village to do anything in this world, and to effectuate this kind of change. But yeah, everybody has the talents and the gifts to do it. And it's just a blessing to be able to have people like you who have helped to cultivate, those seeds that have been planted inside of me, from starting from a pretty early age. So I thank you. I thank you for allowing me to share my journey and a little bit more about myself on your amazing platform. And you're not a person I'll say no to. So there's that too. I'm creating boundaries, but
Yes, of course. I definitely respect that.
I'll always say yes. I'll always say yes, Dawn. So just know that I'm right there. I'm in your corner and rooting you on, and just so proud of all the things that you're doing, as well, to make us, more whole, and to really do everything to make us more whole and joy-filled people. You bring me such joy. So it's been an absolute privilege and pleasure to be a part of this.
Thank you so much. Now my eyelashes will fall off. Okay.
It would be right if somebody's eyelash didn't fall off.
Don't y'all, please don't criticize it. Please don't judge it. Don't do that.
No. Yeah. But
understand that this is a beautiful sisterhood that sparked at a HBCU and continues. And I feel that whenever I talk to you, Wendy, we always pick up where we left off. And I just, again, thank God for allowing me to meet you and connect with you, and amongst many other women at Xavier, for sure. But you continue to inspire me, motivate me, and thank you for allowing people to see who you are, because it's someone out there that feels that they're not good enough, that they haven't met the mark, that their cup is half empty. And, talking with my mentees as well, that's important, that we see the frailties of human beings behind, movements, and that we're vulnerable to that and we're open, but we also show them how we can overcome them. And it's important to, keep going and have a good support system around you. And that, ordinary people can do some super ordinary things, supernatural things, if you will.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I want to say to the young people too, if you don't feel like you have that community, it's so important to try to create one. Some of us are not blessed with that sort of already built-in support network. And if you see people that you're admiring, seeing people that you're really inspired by what they're doing in the world, whether it be your teachers, your aunts and uncles, whomever, really trying to create that kind of supportive network. That's so important, because I know that so many young people, period, not just young people, period, gotta have that. And so it's really incumbent, to the best of your ability, to try to create that positive network that's fueling you.
Amen. Wendy Greene. LL.M. All of that good stuff. Listen, we have to support our sister. We definitely need to support Professor Wendy Greene. Go to 𝗓𝗢𝗡𝗑.com, #𝗓𝗓𝗓 on Instagram. Make sure that you follow her, everyone that you've shared this with. If you're on the replay, go ahead to the website, 𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗑.com, #𝗓𝗓𝗓. We want to support you all the way, so we can make sure that all states in the United States are behind you in the movement. Thank you. Thank you so much. All the sorors on here, Xavier writes, Wendy's family, Kimberly, thank you. Who else? She also brings a wonderful love from your mom, says she's proud of you as well. So I know everyone is proud of you, Wendy. Everyone that has crossed your path knows who you are. I mean, we're all proud of you. We're all proud of you. So
thank
you.
so very much.
And all you're doing is being you. That's it. Just being who you are.
Just be you. Just be you.
Yeah, exactly. That's right.
Yeah.
Y'all. I wish we could do this like all night and every.
I know. I think we need to do this more often. Sounds like another show in the making, or
You know my mind, Wendy. My mind's going, okay? So don't be surprised if I call you again and I'm looking for that reply saying yes. I'll be setting boundaries, but you know.
I know, and it's in the record. It's in the record, so I really can't say you got it down.
That's right.
Stuff out of me, I tell you. But no, it'll be fun. No, I love doing this. Like I said, you're Oprah, I'm Gail. Let's just do it.
Let's do it.
This has been truly a highlight of. It's been a crazy week, I'll tell you, in light of everything that's going on in the world.
Yes.
I was so looking forward to it. It's been such a highlight to a pretty hard week, but it will be the start of I pray, hopefully, an even better week.
Amen to that. Thank you again. Everyone, don't forget to share this broadcast with everyone you know. And thank you, Professor Wendy Greene, Sora Wendy Greene, my big sister, Wendy Greene, for joining me again. Love you, sis.
Love you too. Thank you.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
We got an opportunity, a responsibility, not just to ourselves. We got a legacy to uphold, people to make proud. So we got to take advantage of the moment, of the momentum. We got to protect our power, be the vanguards of our own voices. We got to keep doing the work, because our right to be heard won't be taken away on our watch. We got this. We got next.